In the frost, bitten heart of medieval England, where loyalty bled beneath banners and destiny was won by iron will, there rose a day so soaked in medieval warfare, so soaked in brutal battle, that even Stoic history dare not whisper its full sorrow. March 29th, 1461, the brutal battle of Towton, when men fought not for coin nor plunder, but the ancient crown itself, while the skies howled and snow fell like heaven's own morning. It was no tale of chivalry, but a bloody war where mercy perished before dawn and steel answered only to vengeance. If your heart beats for medieval warfare, brutal battle, Stoic history, watch till the end, for this is not just a story, but a reckoning carved into frozen mud and men's bones. Hit like, crush subscribe, and let your soul march with ours into the deadliest single day on English soil. They came in the silence before dawn, boots crunching upon snow crust so cold it cracked like glass, their breaths clouds, their hearts hot with fealty and fury. Across the frozen plateau of Towton, two armies gathered beneath the wrath of winter and the weight of destiny. On one side stood the men of York, hardened by years of medieval warfare, sworn to raise Edward to the ancient crown, even if it drowned all England in bloody war. On the other side, the Lancastrians, loyal to the frail, haunted Henry, clung to their red rose and vowed to fight until the last soul drowned in scarlet mud. The ridge above the river Cockbeck trembled as tens of thousands took their places, knowing this would not be some modest skirmish recounted in alehouses. This would be a brutal battle that wrote its name in Stoic history with the torn bodies of men. Snow screamed sideways across the field, hurled by an unholy wind that favoured the Yorkist bows. Archers of York stepped forward with longbows seasoned in endless medieval warfare. They loosed shafts high into the storm, their arrows riding the wind like flocks of deadly ravens. Lancastrian archers shot back, but their volleys fell short, beaten down by wind and sleet. Yorkist men plucked those failed arrows from the earth and sent them back with deadly gratitude. Soon the white ground was peppered black with broken shafts, like a plague of crows descending upon medieval England. The sound was not thunder, but a steady hiss and thump wood through air, iron into flesh, a bloody war of inches and courage. Soon the bows grew silent, not through choice but necessity. Quivers emptied, men staggered forward, bowed by the weight of armour wet with snow and terror. Longbowmen drew daggers, hatchets and billhooks, for the brutal battle had come to its second act, as all medieval warfare must in the crush of hand to hand. Footmen slammed together like closing jaws of a monstrous trap. Bills hooked at throats and elbows, dragging men down only for axes to split open helms. Longbows became clubs, smashing teeth, cracking skulls. It was a world shrunk to a single stride, a single breath, a single swing. Step, hook, pull, drive again and again until arms shook with exhaustion, and the snow beneath their greaves ran black, red with ruin. The ground itself became a treacherous conspirator. Clay beneath the thin frozen crust softened under thousands of pounding feet. Men slipped and sank. If one man fell to a knee, heavily armoured and breathless, his comrades behind crushed forward, driving him deeper into the muck. Yorkist horns blared commands, but the wind swallowed them whole. Lancastrian trumpets wailed somewhere in the storm, but banners vanished in the blinding flurries, turning direction into chaos. Known captains were lost in swirls of snow and blood, and without their guiding eyes, files fractured and friends struck friend in confusion. Hour by hour, the soldiers of Lancaster felt their strength ebb, their arrows gone, their feet numb, their arms trembling beneath the weight of steel and fear. Then, from the swirling whiteness on their flank, there came fresh standards, the Yorkist reinforcements led by Norfolk, late to the field, but timely to doom. Their arrival changed the weary push into a slaughter. They struck the Lancastrian side as a hammer strikes an anvil. Men who had fought since dawn shuddered beneath the fresh assault, their shoulders giving way, their lines bending under pressure they could no longer repel. Desperate captains screamed for order, but their voices were lost in the maelstrom of medieval warfare. Suddenly the Lancastrian formation cracked, not with honor, but with panic. They had been commanded both sides to give no quarter. There would be no mercy in this brutal battle, no surrender in this bloody war. Men glanced behind them searching for escape, but there were few paths off the plateau of Towton. The ancient crown demanded sacrifice. They cast off helmets and breastplates, hoping to run swifter, but lightened armor could not outrun Yorkist fury. The river beckoned below, fat with snowmelt, churning and brown. The cockbeck had become a reaper. Along its banks men slipped, slid, and toppled into its freezing death. More men drowned than died of sword or pike. The fleeing surged forward, pushing the foremost into the water where armor dragged them under. Behind came the relentless Yorkists, stabbing downward, hacking spines, splitting skulls, enraged by victory and the madness of battle. What happened then was no longer battle, but butchery. Historic chroniclers later claimed 8,000 dead, perhaps exaggerated, but the ground itself remembers. Long after, when graves were dug, bones were found with crushing blows to the rear of the skull, forearm bones shattered from last desperate defense. These were not heroic duels, but pursuit kills, finishing strikes delivered in the frenzy that overtakes men when mercy is forbidden and blood has run too hot for too long. All across the plateau, among churned mud and shredded pennons, the bodies of common men clogged stream beds, piled in ditches, and lay frozen in grotesque communion. A bridge of human flesh spanned the cockbeck, not myth, but dreadful truth born of terror and terrain. The victors did not rejoice long. Edward of York, soon crowned Edward Roman, seized not merely a throne but an England stunned by the scale of medieval warfare waged against its own sons. Parliament rewarded him with attainders stripping land and title from defeated nobles, pouring confiscated estates into the hands of the loyal. It was cold governance born of a brutal battle, a stoic history written in parchment and mixed with blood. The ancient crown sat heavier for the cost it claimed at Towton, yet even then Henry VI and his Queen Margaret fled to Scotland. They brewed rebellion in the north, proving that no bloody war ends cleanly. Violence slept beneath the soil but did not die. Towton remained etched in every village that sent husbands, sons, and labourers to never return. Medieval England's fields lost more than warriors. They lost ploughmen, craftsmen, and fathers. Manor rolls show emptied tenancies. Wives left widowed, children orphaned, estates transferred to distant hands by royal decree. The brutal battle reshaped not just who wore the crown, but the heartbeat of countryside life. No quarter meant no recovery. Towton's price haunted generations in quiet grief, whispered over hearths, and all the while the crowned victor tried to stitch peace with land grants and patronage, binding noble to king, hoping the memory of so much blood might hold back future war. Yet blood has a habit of awakening vengeance, and the cycles of medieval warfare would spin anew long before peace could truly root. Even the land would not forget. Come spring, farmers digging near the cockbeck found bones, arrowheads, bits of shattered helm. Mass graves at Towton Hall yielded skulls cleaved and clubbed. Archaeologists centuries later confirmed what Stoic history had preserved. These were not dueling knights, but men slain in flight, proof of pursuit long after lines first broke. Broken billhooks, axe heads, and rusted polearms lay like confessions in the soil. Everything spoke to a day where civilization put on the mask of savagery and called it necessity in service of the ancient crown. Towton's memory endured as the quintessence of medieval warfare's horror, not glorious, but ghastly. chroniclers who once celebrated chivalry now penned grim reflections. Instead of jeweled tournaments and noble courtesy, they described mud-skinned corpses frozen in prayer or panic. They wrote not of bright armor gleaming in sunlit fields, but of sleet-soaked men whose final breaths fogged the icy storm as they begged, not for glory, but for one more moment of warmth, one more heartbeat before oblivion. Stoic history offers little comfort, only the truth that this brutal battle changed the very way England fought and ruled, teaching kings that power won in a single day of horror must be guarded with paranoia for decades to come. Towton taught that no quarter orders lead not merely to victory, but to memory that simmers eternally. Those who escaped cut throats in the snow would carry trauma etched into their souls. Some became monks, some became murderers, some drifted homeless across medieval England, muttering of white storms, black arrows, and rivers that swallowed men like a hungry wolf. They spoke of how the brutal battle raged not only on fields, but in dreams long after, and how the ancient crown flickered atop blood-stained temples, cursed as much as blessed. Such was the real legacy of Towton, a deadlier foe than any foreign invader, for it taught Englishmen to slaughter Englishmen with merciless precision. In time, kings changed, wars ended and began again, but whenever the wind howled across that lonely plateau, mothers swore they could still hear the clash of steel, fathers claimed the storm smelled vaguely of blood. To later generations the place became hallowed ground not for victory, but warning, a silent testament that when ambition outstrips mercy, even the heavens will weep snow upon the doomed. Knights rode by and made the sign of the cross. Peasants whispered prayers, and travellers paused to feel the chill that never quite lifts there, believing some spirits still wander seeking the way home they never found that Palm Sunday long ago. Thus the Battle of Towton stands eternal in medieval warfare, a brutal battle where thousands perished in a single breath of history, a bloody war that crowned a victor but buried a nation's innocence. Stoic history records the strategies, but the land remembers the screams. Medieval England moved onward, ever chasing the ancient crown, yet never again would it feign ignorance of how much unforgiving slaughter it demanded. Edward Roman IV ruled with iron nerve, handing lands to allies, crushing rebellions, and forever eyeing the north from which past foes had poured. He knew Towton had bought him a throne, but also a curse, for in the silence after such horror, one hears destiny whisper that the price must someday be paid anew. Men still debate the numbers 20,000, 30,000, more, but to argue arithmetic is to miss the spirit. Towton was not merely counted in corpses, but in broken lineages, emptied villages, haunted survivors, and a river swollen with unholy sacrifice. Every blade of grass that later grew there rose from a soil watered by blood. Every crow that perched there cried not caw, but lamentation. Every child born near the ridge carried whispers that their fate too would be bound to brutal battle and stoic history. Such is the way of medieval warfare. It births legends not to glorify, but to warn. For those who crave the ancient crown must first walk barefoot across fields where mercy died, where winter sharpened swords, and where England itself learned what it truly meant to wage a bloody war against its own heart. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.